Hey, Mike, how are you?
I'm swell. Happy autumn.
Happy autumn. Happy autumn to all of you. Welcome back to the Pop Culture Squadcast. I'm Bob Harrison. We have Mike Gold here with us, and we got a great show tonight. We got a bunch of stuff we're going to hit in the open, and we have a guest coming. I'm very excited for this. This is Steve Orlando is going to be here tonight. It's his third time on the Squadcast. We're excited for that. He's a friend of the show, but due to a series of other unfortunate and hopefully unrepeatable issues, this is the first time you and Steve will both be on the show at the same time, because the other two times you couldn't be there, and so I'm excited.
Yeah, there was a technical problem.
There was a technical problem, and I think you weren't feeling great the other time.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry to say that I'll be leaving now. And
no, stop, not doing that. All right. So, I am still not, I don't think, officially calmed down from Baltimore Comic-Con this weekend. It was quite a thing. But I do want to say, before we get into that, I want to take a minute, because we're here, just you and me, and happy birthday, Linda.
Thank you very much. Adrian and I went out to get white roses, as we do for her birthday each year, and she posted it, and it's a tough and very obviously meaningful day. Linda is Adrian's mother, my late wife, and
without her, we would not be here.
Without her, Adrian wouldn't be here, and therefore we wouldn't be here. That's right.
Correct.
That's true. That's very true.
So it would have been her birthday today, and we want to take a minute and say happy birthday, Linda.
Well, we like to think it is her birthday today.
Yes, exactly.
Thank you, Bob. That's very sweet. It's very nice.
Very, very much my pleasure. Let's recap Baltimore Comic-Con first. I got a couple of other things we want to get to, and then we'll bring in our guest. It was a great show. The Nathans put on a great show. Brad Tree and Randy Tischler and Brad's sons and everybody else runs a great show down there. I saw that the short times that I was on the floor were pretty packed, obviously, except for the late Sunday when everybody's trying to get out. But for the most part, it seemed pretty good. I heard good things from a lot of vendors and guests. There's the occasional people who didn't have a great time, but for the most part, I think it was a good show. It was the 25th anniversary of Baltimore Comic-Con. Mark Nathan received a citation, like it was Baltimore Comic-Con Day, from the city, and
that's great.
The Oriole bird showed up for the ribbon cutting ceremony on Friday, which is something, considering Mark used to be the bird. Did you know that?
Yeah, I know, and I know about Steve Jeppe and his old costume. So I have a thing for Baltimore costuming.
Sure. Yeah, it was a great show. We had a lot of fun. I did a bunch of panels. Stay tuned to Pop Culture Squad and to our Pop Culture Squad YouTube channel, because I have a couple of things that I did record, and hopefully we'll be able to get those out. It's never easy when you're inside of a room with terrible acoustics and you don't know what it is, what you're gonna record. But we did try some stuff. We'll see how it works. I look forward to it. I'm just going to tell you right now, you need to prepare for October next year. It's mid to late October. So if I have to drive up to Connecticut and throw you in a car, you're coming.
That's not the issue. I truly regret not having been to the Baltimore show last week. I'm almost always there. I'm like a canker sore. I just keep on coming back. But this time I had to be in Chicago the week before. I wrote all about it on the website, and it was a very meaningful experience for me, and I just didn't think I had the energy to literally turn around, or as I once did, drive from Chicago straight to Baltimore.
Yeah. Well, I'm all fine with that. I'm all fine with that. We just have to
You
do a better
know,
job
and I'm
scheduling
very
it.
saddened by it. I let myself down,
Oh no.
sort of, but I also prop myself up because I'm alive to say it.
There you go. There you go.
That's
We just need to schedule better next year. That's all.
yeah.
We're good at it. Because listen, I'm telling you, this is the funny part. There's this, which you don't know, but I have this ongoing conversation at Comic Cons behind, away from you, that there is someone who wants you to sign something. And it is, and I keep saying, oh well, he just left last year, and I saw him at Heroes, and I'm like, oh, he's gonna be at Baltimore. And then I saw him at Baltimore. I'm like, oh man, he's not here. And and he's like, oh, you're kidding me. So you got to be there. So we got to figure it out.
Just
Uh,
bring him over to my house.
well, he lives in England, so there's that. You can go to his house.
Uh, Newfoundland.
Meet there.
I've always wanted to go to Newfoundland, always, because it has its own time zone. It's a half hour away from the Atlantic time zone, which is an hour away from the Eastern time zone that you and I are in right now, or at least that's what we think. And so it's 8 o'clock here. It's 9:30 in Newfoundland, and that just blows me away. Time does not exist. It is merely a construct.
It is true. That is true. So again, it was a fantastic show. I had a great time. Saw a lot of people, saw a lot of friends, made some new friends. I was told by Jeff Jones that I have the best mustache in comics. I disagree with him. I can never compare to Sergio, but I'll take a close second.
Well, yeah, I got to give Sergio.
Sure.
That's
I'll take second.
Yeah. No. I mean, that's only fair. That's only right. How did Jerry like
Either
the
that
show?
or he thinks I'm Sergio, one or the other.
No, it's your accent.
Oh yeah.
How did Sherry like the show?
Oh, she had a great time.
She
Sherry spent the majority of the show, almost all of it, with the Simonsons. We volunteer for Hero Initiative. We'll be doing that again at the GalaxyCon in Columbus. Sherry and I will be there, manning the Hero Initiative booth. But we do volunteer, and so Sherry spent the time kind of managing the Simonsons lines and collecting money for Hero Initiative from them. And I think Walter only called her Wheezy like twice. So
well, Walter's actually older than I am, so
he is. I know, and he goes. He just goes on his own schedule, and it was they had a great time. There were some really interesting things. It's a great thing about cons is that people have their own stories. Everybody has their own story that they want to tell or their experience, and they go there for a reason. I happen to be, outside of a panel room preparing, and there was a guy waiting to go into Walter's, spotlight panel. And he started talking to me and said that he had a copy of Thor 337 and he had it when he was a kid and he sent it in to Marvel Comics to get it autographed. And then about a month later, he got it back autographed.
No kidding. Great.
So he had it with him, but he had never met Walter and he wanted to meet Walter. And their line was pretty bad. So I said, go over there and, my wife is there. Tell her Bobby sent you and she'll get it taken care of for you. So,
okay. So Bob does an enormous number of conventions. So if there's ever anybody you want to see at a convention and the line is too long, do what he just said. Do what Bob just said. And you can break all the lines that you want. using Bob's name.
I don't know that that's the
You'll be
case.
loved for that.
I don't think that's the case. It was a very specific situation, and he wasn't asking Walter. He wasn't asking Walter. He was asking, we had an in for this guy, but it was nice to help him out.
It's cool. I don't stand in line to see Walter or
No,
most people, because I get a certain level of deference, and I'm always embarrassed by that. Always.
I
So
understand what
I
you're saying.
totally get that.
I know that it's part of the game. Unfortunately, it feels a little weird because you always want people. People are waiting for a long time, and
Right.
I think
Right.
most people have a good time. I think I know that sometimes you have to be patient, and there was times 10 years ago where I had to be patient. And I waited. I remember waiting in a line for a long, long time to see people. So you
Yeah.
have to do it.
Yeah. At least when I'm interacting, I try to make it worth everybody's while.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a miniature show, kinda.
That sounds
That's what you do.
that sounds fair.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move off of this. I want to touch on some interesting news that came up today, and it's related to Zoe Thorogood. You're familiar with her, yes?
Yes.
So I'm going to add this to the stage. So unfortunately, her brother passed away last week, and so she has decided to turn all the profits that she receives from the day her brother passed to the end of the year and donate those profits to charity in his name for her book. It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth. You've read that, yes?
Mm-mm.
You should read it.
I should.
It is excellent. I think it won awards, and if it didn't, it was a crime that it didn't, because I'm pretty sure it did win awards. It's a great book, but she took the effort of saying, hey, that she wanted to do this. So she said, all profits made from the sale of my book from the day my brother left us to the end of the year will be donated to mental health charities. Mental health is so underfunded and misunderstood. And I'm not going to pretend this will make much of a difference. But while I'm still in deep grief and pain, it is a start. This book is about my own experience with a wonderful family curse we call depression. James features in it briefly, although this book was made before he opened up to me about his own struggles. So I just think it's important that we what we do here is about this community and people, and here's someone in our community who is hurting and trying to find a way to make it better for people. So
Absolutely. And it's not just about our community.
No, it's about people.
It is the voice of our community, and our voice of our community should be used, and is often used, to get the word out on important things. And the ongoing mental health lack of understanding is a real crime. I think until people really understand what this situation is, what it's really about, how it's not some sort of moral failing, then and only then will we be able to get some progress.
I agree with you 100%. So if you have not yet purchased It's Lonely at the Center of the Earth, or if you have purchased it and want to buy it for somebody else as a gift, she's going to take those profits and turn them into charity, so people can have more resources if possible. Again, the more people who do things.
Good for Zoe. I mean, I'm very sorry about the circumstances, of course, but she's right. You take what you got and you try to make the world better.
I agree. One more thing. Our guest is here. He is in the green room, so we're going to get to him quick. But I just want to highlight a book that came out today from Abrams Books. Abrams Books is not something we normally have. Not that we wouldn't. It's just that they're not as prolific. It's just because they're not as prolific. And I try and grab as much as possible. But there's a new book came out today called Drafted by Rick Parker. And I saw previews. I am super excited. I think I'm going to wait till about 3 weeks in New York, and I'm going to get it there because he is going to be in New York Comic Con. But this book looks really good, and I recommend it. I've seen some quotes. Larry Hama is a big fan of it. Chris Eliopoulos is a big fan of it. Those are just a couple that I saw. But I also wanted to say that I was texting with Rick earlier today, and he wanted to let me know that he wanted me to say hi to you. And that you may not remember, but you were the first editor in comics who encouraged him to do more cartooning way back in 1989.
Way back in 1989.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, that is a long time ago now.
He said that he had been doing lettering mostly by hand those days, but Mike saw something.
Yeah, that's the pride and joy and glory of the job that I've had, is that you get to work with young people, do whatever you can to get them to that next step. And seeing something like this, obviously I'm looking forward to the book. I mean, first of all, I'll take anything that Larry Hama recommends, but I like Rick's work a lot, and this is an interesting topic. So I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah. It looks great. There's a bunch of new number ones this week. We're not going to get to them here because I want to get to our guest. I want to get him in here. So stay tuned to popculturesquad.com, and you'll see new number ones hit the site tomorrow on New Comic Book Day. He's here. I want to get him in. So we're going to bring in right now, returning to the show for the third time, but the first time with Mike, Steve Orlando. Hey, how are you?
I'm good, and as I said in the private chat, it's alive. I felt like that was an in memoriam video intro. So
It's not. It's a resume of so much stuff. This is what you're 12 years in, more than that, 15. Are we close to that?
Man, it's actually only 10. It just feels like it's been
so much stuff.
Yeah, there's
flashing through my mind as I was seeing that intro. God damn, you're lucky. Those are some of the most beautiful covers. That's like a gaggle of beautiful covers, every one of them. And I don't think Bob had spent a lot of time choosing the very best. There are a lot of them out there.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Mike. I've been pretty lucky so far, and I hopefully continue to be. But yeah, it's actually 10 years since my book Undertow came out this year. So this is my first decade in. We'll see.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. We'll see about the next one. But yeah, I'm here.
Gonna be great. This is the first time you guys have interacted, if I'm correct, since the Suicide Squad premiere. Was it the first movie, Suicide Squad, not the Suicide Squad.
Yeah, that's true. I was there. And I, as someone who tries to always find something positive, if not extremely specific, to say about whatever I've seen, I believe I commented that I enjoyed the sound editing in that movie to the then president of the company, and she agreed.
So. I like the movie more than that. Only because it was better than most of the rest of the god-awful DC movies. After you see like Justice League and Superman and Batman, or Batman and Superman, or whatever the hell it is, that was a relief in part. But my buddy John Ostrander was sitting next to me, and he was well honored at that movie by not only the movie and the filmmakers, but by everybody who was there at that world premiere. So I was having a great time.
Well, it's funny you bring that up, Mike. True story. I saw John. Well, actually, to wind it back even further before I say this, like not. I've always Bob knows I go to the mat for John. I think he's one of the, not that he's unsung, but undersung as far as creators from his generation go. And actually, one of the first people to really show me kindness in the business was Tom Mandrake, because I was following him and John's work on The Spectre and then Martian Manhunter when I first started trying to get in. But it's funny you bring up John Bennett there, because it's, we were at the party after, and I actually talked to security so John could get in and meet Viola Davis, because I figured when would he have a chance to do this again? And he was with a little, like, all of the actors. We were all at the party, but there was clearly two parties going on, and so
Yeah.
Except for Jay Courtney, who is just an enormous Australian guy and did not mind mingling because he's like the Australian Hulk. But anyway, the point is, I was like, look, I'm not trying to make problems, but she's in there. Obviously, this is the guy that created Amanda Waller. Like, could he just come in and say hello? And he did. He said no, but she would come out and say hello. So that is my Ostrander story, because she did come out and meet him and things. But I have immense respect for John, and I liked aspects of that movie beyond the sound editing. I did not like the Enchantress's like evil sexy dance that she did.
Well, there's very little about the Enchantress that I liked in that movie.
Yes, we could have done without her, actually. But
it's just like, just slow it down, man. Like, if that was a marching band performance, I would say to do it at halftime. Like, she was just doing too much. But anyway, we're not here to talk about Suicide Squad beyond that.
Yeah. But
no, we're here to put down Suicide Squad.
Well, the Suicide Squad. Like, as folks who've seen my pull quotes know, I always find something good to say, even if it is, again, extremely specific.
There you go.
That's awesome. I want to start kind of with what's coming. You have a bunch of new stuff that's coming out. And I know the way that things work, you probably finished this stuff years ago and it's just coming out now, but
not that recently, but pretty recently. If we're I wrapped Ewoks, I think, last month on my end, but the art isn't wrapped yet. Like, we're not that far.
But it comes out in 2 weeks, I think. As issue 1 comes out, which is great. What's that like? You're working on the Star Wars property.
It's been good. I did. It's my first longer Star Wars thing. I was really happy that they invited me in for the Darth Vader black, white, and red thing from about, I think, last year or maybe the year before. Time kind of blends together. But my story was a little strange in that, so I didn't know if they would have me back. But I'm a big Ewoks fan, so is Mike Basso, one of the editors on it. And we, about 1.5 years to 2 years ago, we started realizing that 2024 was going to be the 40th anniversary of both of well, at least the first TV movie, Ewok Adventure, and of course, Return of the Jedi. And so we wanted to do something for it, and it took that long to figure out what it was going to be, because the TV movies, they're not like the holiday special, but it became clear that we weren't really going to want to adapt them directly. We were going to want to take the things that seemed exciting. So it took a while to file it down and everything and get it to where it needed to be. But now we are here, and look, honestly, like, it's a pure adventure story. It is one of the easiest books I've ever worked on. So hopefully that comes through in the pages. It's just a ton of adventure, a ton of Ewoks in there. I think nearly every Ewok that folks know by name will at least get a brief appearance, if not more. And then we're going to be bringing in a ton of the like creatures and things that I always loved as a kid, that haven't necessarily maybe been brought into the current non-legend Star Wars universe. So that stuff is all exciting to me. And, on a base level, I was too old for Jar Jar Binks not to seem a little lame, but I was the perfect age for the Ewoks. So, these were my things. I used to go skiing every Sunday with my family, and I would come home and watch Return of the Jedi and every week. And what happened from that is that I really enjoyed the Ewoks. And I also really enjoyed a Man-O-Man, who was a giant planarian from Jabba's palace. but I don't know if that miniseries is going to happen. So I was really happy. It does carry around shrunken heads and things. It's a cool design. But I was really happy to be able to not just work on Ewoks, because again, Wicket was my guy. He was like my Robin. Like that was how I saw myself in the Star Wars universe. Don't pick it apart too much because he's a 3-foot tall bear. But and but it's been good. And then we get to create new ones. Like we're creating a new Ewok character. We're bringing in, like, talk about comics and animation royalty. We're bringing in Asha the Red Ghost, who debuted in a single episode of the Ewoks cartoon, but it was written by Paul Dini. And you can tell because she's basically like a Tarzan or a Batman for Endor. And she's debuting in the non-Legends world for the first time. And yeah, it is just pure adventure. Like for folks, I'm the sex and violence guy in most books. That is not me here for a variety of reasons. Like it's a travel adventure on Endor. Huge monsters, all the ones you expect and a lot that you don't. And also, like, getting to see characters like Wicked, characters like Chief Chirpa, mashing up against some classic bounty hunters that haven't really been on Endor before, with Zuckuss, and who I for a long time called 4-LOM, and I realized upon working with Lucasfilm is called 4-LOM, which I did.
Wow.
It makes sense because for years we've been saying C-3PO, but for some reason he was always 4-LOM, but it is 4-LOM, let me tell you.
Who's the artist on the Ewok series?
So we are working with Alvaro Lopez, and we are working with Laura Braga. So there's a split for every issue. One focusing on the Ewoks, one focusing on the bounty hunter pages for each issue. And then we have, it's not Andrew Dalhouse. It's not our colorist. One moment. I have to use my cheat sheet. But Antonio Fabella, who worked with me on 2099 Exodus, is going to be doing our colors as well. So it's those guys are great. They're making me look like I know what I'm doing. And it's just been really fun. And getting to create a new like Imperial shitheel for the book has also been a pleasure, I will say.
Well, you always enjoy creating shitheels.
Well, like, in Andor, we saw what like cruel middle management was like. In this book, you'll see this is more like what the boss from The Office did after Endor, because he just like is completely unscrupulous and spineless. But so I'm very, very happy with him as well.
That's awesome. That is awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I was excited that you were going to be doing it. I knew it would be fun. This one just got announced recently. Is that, or well, at least it's recently solicited.
Yeah.
Tell us about this. This is from Dark Horse Ripperland.
Yeah, it's my first Dark Horse book.
It's your first Dark Horse book. It takes place far in the future.
It takes place in the relative near future. I mean, like I say that because with sci-fi, like the far future, I feel like people think is going to be like the 31st century. This is about 100 years in the future.
That's far. I won't be here.
Well, we all might be, but we might be doing this in 100 years, but it'll be like Futurama, and the three of us
right.
in little heads.
Bell jars.
Somehow, yes.
We'll pull back this episode and say, "See, you said you were wrong."
But so this, if we are there, I would expect you to do it, Bob. So this came about actually for folks who don't know, like the American and European comics markets are very different. Work tends to be a little more, I'll generously say, contemplative sometimes, especially in the UK. The great publisher there, Self-Made Hero, does a lot of what I would call like the type of things that like Fantagraphics or Drawn and Quarterly do as well. And so my friend John Dunning had done some really good work there. He'd had some awards nominations and things, and we were talking. He said, "How do I break into American comics? I'd love to." And I said, "Well, to be frank, like make it high concept and remember that you're probably pitching it to bros." And he said, "Okay." And he came back to me a week later with like the perfect pitch, and it was Ripperland for us to write together. He said, "Well," and that's the key for this book. It's 100 years in the future. It's I almost call it speculative fiction because it is very much based on what's going on today. Brexit is a complete failure. And to salvage their economy and their country, essentially, the UK reaches out to America and we buy the country. So 100 years from now, the only job in the UK, or rather in Britain, is to be an actor because the entire country is a theme park of what we think as Americans the Victorian era was like. That's the only job you can have. There's no technology beyond what they had at about 1900. And Americans go there as a country-sized theme park. This all comes to a head when, of course, as you might tell from the title, there's a Jack the Ripper inspired murder, and an American FBI agent has to cross under the Atlantic Ocean, traveling through the hole, which I can't believe we got away with calling it that, and to come out and to solve this murder, working with Edwin Fogg, who is he's either a detective or he plays the role of a detective in the future version of London, and that comes up in the book. So it is a gorgeous, gorgeous art by Alessandro Oliveira, written by me and the very classy John Dunning. I think it's one of the nicest looking books I've ever been part of. It's like an elaborated Guy Davis type style that Alessandro has, and you can see in the cover because he's also painted the cover. And sure. It's a delight. You can hear me and John talking to each other through the voices of the American and English detectives. And I just think it's going to be a blast. I think Alessandro is already a superstar, and he's only going to climb higher after this book comes out. It's going to be hard to work with him again because he'll be leaping past me. But I'm super excited. It's unlike anything else I've done, and a lot of people say that, and it's usually bullshit. But it's not really bullshit here because I've never worked with John before, and the merging of our styles has brought me somewhere that is very different. It's a little wordier, Bob, I feel like you've read everything I've written and some things that I've only thought about writing. So you know that I don't do a lot of internal monologue. I don't do a lot of flowery stuff, but that is this book. And
you're very much of a show don't tell
kind
of guy.
But it is in this book, and I think we're better for it just because I haven't done it a lot before. It doesn't sound like a me book or a John book. It's this weird hybrid, kind of like what happened with Philip and I on Kill a Man, which is also one of my favorite books I've ever done. This is, to me, I think, the best part of when you're co-writing with someone, because you do get, you become this entity that is unlike solely one or the other. So I'm really excited for people to see it. I can't wait for them to release more interior art. And yeah, we're out in January.
You've twisted something in my brain, so congratulations. Because I normally think of the United States of America as a theme park.
Oh, you're not wrong. You're not wrong, Mike.
And if you look at some of the earliest issues of 2000 AD, the British Weekly, they kind of see it that way too. And just to flip that could be really interesting. You may not want to do any conventions in England right around then, but
yeah, for better or worse, I've never done one as it is. So I expect that to continue. I will say this is a non sequitur to an extent. Mike, forgive me, I don't know exactly where you live, but I do know where Bob does. So it's worth pointing out that I've actually been I always need things on while I work because I learned to write in the back of a Denny's. So I actually can't work in silence like a lot of my peers. Anyway, and Homicide: Life on the Street has just hit Peacock like a month ago, and I never watched it before. And I will say the first 3 seasons are like another level of network television. I love them. But it's also fascinating to me. I bring this around because Baltimore. It's fascinating to me that the police station there is shot in what is now the Sagamore Pendry Hotel. But the connection to Ripperland is that, without even knowing it, just because he's one of my favorite authority figure actors, rather, the police chief in Ripperland is based off Yaphet Kotto, and he also plays the chief in Homicide, which I wish I could say was an ode to Homicide, but I haven't watched it yet. When I think of like an authority figure, I see him, and I loved him. So, but by chance, the police chief there, the chief in Homicide.
Yeah, he doesn't play a role that you forget.
Oh, I love him. I love him as Giardello with his the slightly the 1 to 3% madness that he has in his eye when things happen. It's wonderful.
Homicide was a terrific series and a real groundbreaker. But when you mention buildings that have been sort of repurposed, on Hill Street Blues, the exterior shots of the police headquarters, police station, was and still is, it's still there, a police building in Chicago built at the turn of the previous century when that very neighborhood was a very, very Orthodox Jewish neighborhood. And very rapidly, the area around that building became known as the best place to go to if you want somebody to kill you. The worst murder rate in the city at that time, a city known for having a solid murder rate, was right around that police station. And my great grandfather lived there.
Nice.
That's fantastic. I want to, we're going to get to some of the other stuff, but like you brought up something, so I want to talk about it. So you've had, I mean, it's not just Philip, and it's not just this book. You've worked with other people where you collaborate as a writer. Do you enjoy it? I mean, how's that work for you? I mean, obviously you're talking positively about the experience of the voice that comes out, and you and I have talked about your voice, over the years. Is that something
Yes.
you like doing?
At the last con I saw you at, one of my peers described my voice as acerbic. But
I'm not talking about your speaking voice. I'm talking about your writing voice.
I think it would be true in both cases, actually.
Well, I don't know about that either.
I see an acerbic quality to your writing style. Sure, absolutely.
I took it as flattery, to be honest. So that was fine. So I do like it. I mean, I'm not the easiest person to work with. That is the truth, because I have strong opinions about nearly everything, but that just means it takes the right person to work with me. So, and when it clicks, and it has, like, I wrote with Steve Fox, and hell, we got our first, Aftershocks first and maybe only Eisner nomination.
Mm-hmm.
I worked with John Sway, and we did Search for Who, a book that never could have been what it was without his participation, and discovered this huge part of his family history that, we wouldn't have known about otherwise. Worked with Philip and ended up doing what is still one of my favorite, if not the favorite things I've ever written. Same with John. So the key in those areas is that you have to find someone, of course, that you don't have to be buttoned up around in my case. Like I can't really be walking on eggshells with a co-creator, because this is like, I don't have kids. These are my kids. So like I can't be fucking around with that. But the other thing is, I honestly think it's best if there's someone you connect with personality wise, but also that your Venn diagram is relatively small, because what you want to do is bring stuff that to your own work that you could never do otherwise. In the case of Fox on Rainbow Bridge, I have a corgi. This, for folks who don't know, this is about having one last adventure with your pet after they die. And I have corgis, but what I don't have, or I have a corgi, what I don't have is the experience with senior pets. And what I didn't have at that time is the experience of doing YA or middle grade work. So I reached out to Fox. We already basically talk every day because we work from home, and he was both a former editor at Random House, and I happen to know that his family specifically fosters senior cats. So those were the holes I had to plug. I knew how to tell the story, but I didn't know how to bring the realism to those aspects of it, which is a key aspect. And then, of course, I wanted to merge my, let's call it, mainstream comic style with the quote unquote rules of writing middle grade and YA, which Fox knew like the back of his hand. So that's like I hate all these analogies, but yeah, when it works, it's like chocolate and peanut butter, right? And they make each other better. When it doesn't work, it's like a peanut butter and pickle sandwich, which, for the record, 5 people probably still like that, but it's not a huge success.
Those that aren't using sports activities.
I'm sorry?
Those who aren't using the pickles for sports activities.
Yeah. Yes. But yeah, no, like when it, like, I do like it because I'm not perfect. No writer is. And even if they are, it's something different when you put them in a blender and pull this new kind of story out. So, it's interesting that, yeah, some of my favorite work is stuff I've co-written. Maybe it's experiential as well, because I remember the process, but I think that I talk about Kill a Man a lot. So far, that is the best example. I love all those other books, but I probably said it in this podcast in the past, and I've said it in panels, and it's true. I specifically remember, and will always remember, Philip and I came to that book with 2 different endings in mind. And when we got into it, because we've known each other for a long time. But the key is, as we sort of like stumped and lobbied for our points of view, the end result ended up being option C. It's not like Philip won or I won. We found something once we talked about why the individual endings mattered to us really, and why what the really important parts are. We ended up with this like Frankenstein ending in the best way that hit all those notes, but wasn't his or mine. And now I get emotional talking about it if I read it. But that's why it's great. Because like in that case, it wasn't even like, oh, someone wins out sometimes and someone wins out another. It's no, like we made something that truly neither of us we know would have gotten to on our own.
It's like acting. In acting, you can use the process of acting, of rehearsing, of working out characters with your co-workers to create sort of a Beatles situation. 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 = 5.
Yes.
And writers working with other writers have the experience of doing that same thing. We don't think of it that way, and I think a lot of writing teams probably don't think of it that way. But I think that the best of them, and there's a lot, it's a 1 + 1 = 3 situation.
Oh, I absolutely agree. But yes, you're also right. I don't think many people always think about it that way. But I you ask 5 of us, 10 of us, 15 of us in a room, I would argue we don't even necessarily agree on what our job as writers is.
No, of course not.
No, but
there's no fun in that.
What's interesting, you bring up Killaman and you're both friends of mine, and we've both had I've had long conversations with both of you. I don't think we've ever actually, the 3 of us, been together. I don't know about that, but just the fact of the way that you guys approach things separately, and how I know you so well, I could just imagine what that must have been like, and the end result is wonderful. So I'm glad that happened.
I would, specifically just because our personalities are so different. I really,
I want
to write another book with Philip, and I just want to have someone filming us when we discuss things. Because I mean, like,
I would like to be there. Whatever you're doing, I just want to be invited.
No, it is
a word.
I mean, I've told this to Bob, but Mike, it's like Tim Taylor and Al Borland from Home Improvement, and Philip is absolutely Al Borland. Like, I'm out here doing like a vaudeville song and dance, and he's just kind of staring at me. But that is the dynamic. Phil is the straight man in both a comedic and general sense. But we love him.
For 20 years now, maybe longer, I have been threatening John Ostrander and Timothy Truman with publishing our emails on
just send them to me. Just send them to me. Okay, I won't publish them, but I just want to. I need them for the book. I
understand. I understand. We'll see what happens to my hard disks. But it's the creative process shouldn't always be taken so damn seriously, because it restricts you. And I mean it seriously. If you lighten up a little bit and goof off, you can go into areas where you wouldn't have gone before and find some good shit.
I have to say, I got to heavily redact this story so that like Rich Johnson doesn't figure out what book I'm talking about. But to that point, like, I've gotten a lot of entertaining emails, but I specifically remember years ago I was working on a book. And, I had actually, being a fool, I had requested this artist to work on this book because I knew he was not fast, but he was always a guy, in my mind, I thought he was always a guy that, with enough time, at least he hit the time he needed, right? Because I worked a lot with Riley Rosmo, who is not this guy. And the nice thing about him is that, like, he's a 6-week guy, but that's not like his bullshit answer, and he's secretly a 7-week guy. He really is. He hits it every time. So if you schedule out, like, a book can be on time and all these things. This is not about Riley. Anyway, so seemingly I had forgotten that in the past this exact thing had happened, and we're coming up on the deadline of the book, and it is nowhere near done. I mean, it is, and his, and his credit cards had been nuked 5 times, and like all the excuses had been reused, And then and then it was, oh, can we bring in my assistant to finish because of, because I'm so far. Anyway, it went on. And then after all that lateness, like there was a lack of self-awareness where like this book was already weeks late and we were getting pages and pages of color notes. And we just had to go to print. The point of all this is, to your point, I don't know. It's been almost a decade, and I always remember he sent this one last email after the thing was to print, asking to change it, and the editor just dropped everyone but me and just wrote parentheses, "Fuck this guy," and I was just so amused at the time.
Been there, understand.
But I was like, but to this day, I'm like, you know what? You're right.
Sure.
There are some folks you wonder like how they made it through high school, how they made it through grammar school. There are other folks who are just so damn smart, and proficient and efficient that you feel small standing next to them. So, you take what you get and hopefully the creative process wins.
This is a positive rumor, so I'm going to say it. Someone recently told me that Dan Mora can draw 3 books a month. God tier type stuff.
Nobody's told me that, but I believe it. I think Dan Sampier can too.
Those things that is unsettling. Like I feel
it is. It is. Someone told me
artists are the fastest artists when they actually work. And having gone to journalism school, I understand that because I too learned how to write in the middle of a hailstorm,
Oh.
and I can't write in quiet, but the experience itself. I'm sorry, I'm just babbling. I'm wandering.
Well, no, but you're absolutely right. I was going to say one of the fastest artists I've ever seen is Jim, and he has a reputation for being slow, but he's not slow. Right. He's extremely busy because he's running a company.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, you're lucky he can draw. He has time to draw.
I've been in a meeting when he was drawing like a Suicide Squad cover. And by the way, I did not care because I was watching it and just fascinated to watch it come to life. But no, he's crazy fast. It's just that he's
I'm also really happy that he can run the company and still remember his roots and want to honor and respect them. That is amazing to me because I have some idea of what it's like to run a company. Not and I spent a lot of time at DC. That's quite separate. So
yeah,
I respect that.
Oh, I actually realized this is a DC Daily mug that I think I can now say I stole from the set.
That's
6
awesome.
years ago.
Oh, that's great.
I'm drinking out of a Death Wish coffee mug, so there you go.
Well, I'm just trying to wonder what the statute of limitations on. I think the show is over, right? So I think that I'm safe.
Oh yeah, it's over.
Yeah, we were out, and one of my colleagues, I was like, just put them in your purse, and now we own them. If only I carried a purse. But I'm sorry, Bob. My kleptomania interrupted your segue. So
no, I don't. We're gonna move off this segue because I want to get to the next thing.
Okay.
And
that's a great line. My kleptomania interrupted your segue. That's true.
Yeah, we might add that to the list. Our favorite, line is this. We have to pose this once a show. Persistence against bureaucracy.
Right.
That is the theme of the Pop Culture SquadCast.
Right.
However, I want to talk about the work you're doing with Arancia Studios.
Sure.
And you have a new book coming out. You're writing this one. This is a spin-off from Sweet Paprika. Talk about this book, what it's about, but also, what you've been doing there. And I know, and I know you're gonna lessen the importance of it, but I think it's very important. So talk about it.
Well, with an intro like that, I'm inclined to lie about what I do there.
I know what you do, so you can't lie.
But well, so Mirka Andolfo and Davide Ciacci own Studio Arancia, but Mirka and I actually met on Justice League, so I think it's 2017 is when we first worked together. And apparently she liked the work because I soon after began doing the job I think Bob is talking about, which is to say that I do localization for Studio Arancia. And what that is, for folks who don't know, For comics folks, I usually say that it's the writing version of doing finishing on someone else's layouts or pencils, because you know, in any type of translation situation, usually the translator has less proficiency with one of the two languages, and it is usually, of course, the one that they learn, not the one they're native speaker of. So when Arancia gets an English translation in Italy, it comes to me, and I then do a polish on it to take it from a rough version of English from a non-native speaker into sounding like it is written by a native speaker, hence, or a local speaker, hence localization. So I've been doing that for, well, probably since 2017. And that includes like a ton of really exciting stuff that they put out with Image, like Mercy, like Unnatural, and like Sweet Paprika, which actually won a Harvey Award, I think 2 years ago. And I worked on that with Mirka, and we then did the last year we did a Black, White, and Pink anthology, where I said, you know, honestly, I'd love to be part of it, and of course they said yes, and there we debuted these characters that would appear in Open for Business, and the anthology got nominated for an Eisner this year. So also very exciting. But to that point, I loved writing it. You know, I'd never really done like office rom-com type stuff, which is what Paprika is. I would call it like an erotic office comedy.
Who doesn't love that?
Well, yeah, it's like Sex and the City meets Devil Wears Prada, but with angels and demons. Yeah. So I never done it before, and I had a lot of fun doing it. And so I wrote David and Mirka, and I said, look, like without putting myself over too much, I think besides you two, nobody knows these characters better than me, because I've touched every page of this book. And, you know, I'd love to try to do this spinoff with it, because there is not a ton of queer characters in Sweet Paprika. And they said yes, and that's how this book came about. So these characters are Aubrey and Persica, debuted in Black, White, and Pink. They both work in Miss Paprika's office. She's the publisher of Infernum Press in the world of Sweet Paprika. So they both work in the office, and in the short story they start, they consummate their office crush, and the workaholic lead Aubrey goes on a short version of the same journey Paprika does, which is to balance her work and life, and find a way to make both work at the same time, and not to be so pent up about her sexuality. So coming into Open for Business, you know, we just set these guys up into a relationship at the end of the short, and I said, well, now let's challenge it. And so Open for Business picks up a couple months later. And Aubrey and Persica are trying to figure out being in an open relationship, which is all sorts of drama ensues. And at the same time, Aubrey's trying to advance at work, and he thinks he gets an opportunity from Paprika, and he does in a way. She promotes him to editor, from assistant editor, associate editor. But his first job is working with Durian, who is well known as the most acerbic, like a needy, unhinged nightmare author at the company. But unfortunately, he also writes their best-selling line of trashy sex-tective novels, so they can't get rid of him. And so Aubrey gets assigned the ultimate nightmare client on the job, and at the same time, his private life is boiling over as he pushes and pulls to this idea of being in an open relationship over the course of 4 issues. It is
4 issues.
Yes. Wait, 5 issues. I lied. Haha.
Okay, 5.
But it's just been a blast. Like it is admittedly raunchier than things I've written. Not even in like, I mean, like in both of obviously what we depict, but it's the most for people who know me like you do, Bob. Like the characters actually think and talk more like me in real life. I rarely get to use some of my most creative commentary in my writing life, but it's in this book. It's my fiance's favorite book I've ever written. I showed it to Tim Sheridan, and he blushed and said, "How dare you?" upon reading the first issue. So I'm just extremely proud of it. And then Emilio Pilu, you know, I just got done saying that Ripper Land is one of the nicest looking books I've ever been part of, but it's hard because these next 2 releases both fit that bill. But I will say it's a little different.
Sure.
It's a little, and not just in the visual style. Like Alessandro is taking the script that I work on with John. You know, I think they may work with the translator, at least for some of the things. So the book comes back, but I wouldn't. But there's a professional, there's a safe distance, there's a creative distance, because it has to go through a lot of people and come back. Emilio seems to have like a portal into my brain,
Nice.
because the things that there's a lot of like anime type touches and kind of like big swings as far as reactions and more creative sort of storytelling choices. The point being is that they're all from him. He has like an intuitive sense of these characters and seems to know exactly when to blow something up into a more anime style or to change the actual art style. If a character is getting bashful or getting excited or of course enraged, it's a book I've written. And I'll claim my genius wherever it is. But the exciting thing about, or isn't, but the exciting thing about Paprika is that he just gets it. Like it's like a being John Malkovich type setup, I feel, because everything he does elevates this, but they're all things that are just as surprising to me when they come back, because I wouldn't really know when to say, oh, let's make it like, there's medium changes in what he does. And even as a writer, I wouldn't necessarily know when to pull those things in just because I don't have like the anime literacy and things like that. So the point is, they're both some of the most exciting and best looking books I've been part of. But Sweet Paprika is its own sort of organism, because it's pretty rare that a script that I send out comes back and surprises me to the extent that every issue of Sweet Paprika does.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
That's
And
a
it comes
great
out,
spirit.
issue 1 comes out November 6th. And you said 5 issues, so it'll go into next year as well.
Yes, and I will say, we just have, I don't know if it's going to be an announcement or anything, probably not. But for folks who follow like queer film and things like that, Joel Kim Booster, who is a gay
Sure.
comedian,
I know he's
is writing our intro for Sweet
Oh,
Pepper.
awesome.
I reached out to him after seeing Fire Island, and he said he would do it. So very, very excited to me. Joel does the kind of comedy that sort of echoes what we're doing in Paprika, and he's a trend setter and groundbreaker. So I'm very excited about that.
That sounds great. There's sort of a theme that I've detected from the projects you've been discussing. You seem to like to go into areas you've never been before. And maybe you're a little scared because you've never been there, so you don't know exactly how to do it, and you think maybe you need new skills, and then you go in and you do it, and you learn, and you conquer, and you exceed.
Well, the exceed, Mike. Thank you. We'll leave that to the comment section, but the rest is true. To the extent that I can, because I think that's how you. I think that's how you keep growing, or not growing as a creator. I think to my detriment, I will to counter that. I think there are times when I should have been taken a left instead of a right because I was too worried about being typecast or something. Now, I will never say what books those are, but I think early in my career, I was worried about being typecast when I should have been like, girl, like people, you don't even have a cast yet. Like you have one book out.
Right.
So there are things that I was like, oh, maybe I should have done that. And I'll never tell. But the counterpoint is, yes, I think like, even if the book I took instead of that in the scenario I'm describing, maybe was not as successful as the other, I learned a ton from it. And yeah, I went somewhere I hadn't gone yet. I ended up taking the not like violent book when I was offered it, when I could have done a violent book and taking a different kind at DC, because for the reason you're saying, I knew how to do a head exploding book, but I didn't know how to do this other kind of book yet.
Right.
And now I will say a theme of my career, and Bob has heard me complain about this, is like people do like I will joke and say that many books I write are kind of like a kick to the groin. Like you don't really feel it immediately. But then sometime later you sort of see what was going on. So like, even those times I've swerved now, actually, like I'll see that book come up a lot at a con, but when it was coming out, it was like, oh, what is this? So it's always interesting. Like even the things that I maybe think weren't where they should have been, I think if you stick around long enough, usually sometimes people can find something.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
you quoted, without probably unknowingly, some advice that Sean Connery gave to Christopher Reeve. And I know this from Christopher Reeve because I worked with him on that first Superman movie. He went to Sean Connery and said, look, I'm really afraid of being typecast as Superman. And Sean Connery responded, "Well, what are you now?" Yeah, that's good.
Steve, I do this show. This is what our 55th, 57th episode, and there's everyone is. I get that. Like I haven't gotten that one before. I want you mentioned about your work, taking time to kick, and it reminds me of a conversation I had this weekend. And I know that I've told you about it off the air. I don't know if we've talked about it on the air, but I got a chance to talk to Willow and explain to her how you delivered one of the best slow burn jokes that took me 3 years to get the punchline to.
I told the joke about Willow Wilson.
So I think it was like 2019 or so at FlameCon, and I said, and you'd just been announced that you were taking over Wonder Woman from Willow. And I said, what happened? How did that happen? He's like, well, and you said, well, Willow got a dream job and she just had to take it.
Oh my God, you're right.
And I learned, I was like, within the last year, I'm like, oh, it was the dreaming.
I do remember saying that. Shit, that's witty as hell. I should have.
It was witty as hell, but it took a long time to hit because nobody knew what the answer was.
Well, what did she
the
think?
cool thing is,
she thought it was funny as hell. She loves you, so there you go.
Oh, that's just wonderful. It's a time bomb joke. I love it.
I'll take full credit.
Good for you.
It was brilliant. All right, we're going to talk about Gatchaman and we're going to talk about Scarlet Witch. You get to pick which one first.
Well, let's do Gatchaman because I just sent an issue to print today. So let's do
that. we have Galactor, a miniseries. Is that finished? I don't think it's finished yet. I think there's still at least one more issue.
There are 3 more. Actually, no, I think issue 2 came out last week. Pardon me. So there are 2 more issues. We had hit a little bit of a snag with production, but we are back on track. So 3 and 4 should be coming out normally.
I saw Chaz this weekend. And we were very excited. Had a great conversation. There's more though besides the Galactor. What else are you working on? Is there anything you can talk about that we're going to be getting with you working in this field? And what is it like working in this field? It's a licensed product that there's obviously, we all know, we talk about on the show a lot about how difficult it is to work within licenses like that that somebody else owns, and they're not really born in this medium. So how has that experience been for you?
Well, so I mean, I have done, in addition to working at DC Marvel, of course, that's a license. I've done a fair amount of license work. I've done Transformers. I've done Power Rangers. There's probably others. I did the AEW comics that came out at San Diego. But I'm saying that because, honestly, the folks at Tatsunoko have been some of the easiest to work with of any, and that's not even to say that the others were nightmares. Only one was, and I'll never tell. But no, they've been so excited that we're adding, there of course there are guardrails. It's basically a certain amount of episodes that are in play, or aka Gatchaman 1 versus the Gatchaman 2 type stuff. Mm-hmm. But within that, we're building a ton of new stuff, and they've been very, very supportive. And I'll say myself, I'm the strangest of the 3 guys writing these, by a wide margin. So, Cullen is a writer you take home to your mom, and Tommy, Tommy,
everyone, it's dark.
Well, yeah, Tommy maybe drives a motorcycle, but at most he's like the Fonz, he's still not that dangerous. And so I was thinking that I was going to be the problem. The Galactor mini is stranger than Tommy's first mini, and of course the main book that Chris and Cullen are doing. But to that, I know they've been behind all the weird swings we want to take, and they've been excited. Just that we're adding to the world. So they have been really great. And I tend to just be the one that runs butts up against licensors on these types of things. not because, you know, I do it on purpose, just because the stuff that interests me is somewhat esoteric, as anyone who talks to me knows. So yes, like, you know, Galactor is a book that ostensibly is a supervillain mafia versus a business suit mafia, but it's also a book about like the extreme details of saffron farming. So, you know, like which is true. So, you know, I did worry, but no, they've been excited. And as far as what else is coming, there are at least 2 more miniseries coming for me. I probably should not get into what those are, but I will say, like Tommy Lee, now that some of them are coming out, like Tommy Lee and I, one of the things we're doing are these one-shots featuring members from the team. So he's doing 3 and I'm doing 3. I believe his Ken and June issues have already come out. So I'm doing the Ryu issue, I'm doing the Joe the Condor issue, and I'm doing the Dr. Nambu issue. And those will all be like a size and a half books, so like 32 pages of story. And those will probably be the
doing Jinpei?
I am not. That is
he doing Jinpei?
Yeah. No, I mean, everyone's getting one. So the other ones are Tommy Lee. But yeah, so those are the next I can probably announce. There are 2 other minis from me at minimum and 2 other minis from Tommy Lee at minimum. And of course, Cullen's book is going to be running the whole time.
So one of the things you're kind of talking about is like it feels like you put yourself in this situation, and we it's kind of a theme that we talked about earlier, where you're in this bag and you're just trying to see where the walls are, you know, how far can I push? Is it elastic over here? You know,
that's true, but that still makes it seem purposeful. I just like,
I don't think, I mean, I don't think it's purposeful. I just think that's what you do.
If it's purposeful, it doesn't work as well. If you're writing out of who you are, even if that person is just a hilarious prick of a human being, it's who you are. You use it.
If anything, I'm like a living like wiki hole. You know, so my like the amount of times, at least, and again, I got to keep it vague for staying employed reasons, but at least 5 times in my career, I put something strange and interest that I thought was interesting in a book. And I've gotten a note back from a very well-meaning editor saying, oh, like, I don't know about the name of this concept. It's a little clunky. Like, maybe we should rethink it. And I have to say, well, the thing is that this is a real thing.
Right.
So no, we can't, we can't rethink the name. But it always amuses me. But that's just because I don't know. I will essentially read about anything just in case there's something interesting there. This is also why I frequently, like so many Ubers have been wasted reading about like different kinds of melons. But to that point, there was nothing interesting there. So this doesn't end with a fun melon anecdote, but I have read a lot about them.
Well, listen, I mean, we've also talked about some of the other research you've done with other very, very famous rock star type writers. And we won't get into that on a public discussion.
Why? Oh, come on.
We want to stay on the air.
Oh my God. But no, Galactor has been a blast. I will say, like, and here's the other thing. Once again, something I haven't done is a villain book. Going back to, I was like pushing to get a Darkseid book when I was at DC, and I've never really done one. But this is a villain book,
Oh, and it's great. And I have to say, like, I've only read issue 1. I haven't been to the comic shop last week because running around. But I really enjoyed issue 1. Absolutely. I think you did a great job with it.
I appreciate it. I mean, he is like, you can see so much of the DNA of Birdcats in like Cobra Commander, especially like the TV version, and so many other like 80s villains as well. But I will admit, like, I love Josh's Cobra Commander book specifically, so I was a little jealous when it started. But of course, my revenge was getting my own villain book, so it worked out.
Yeah, I get that. I get that with the Cobra Commander, but I think Birdcats is more Cobra Commander and Destro together.
Oh no, yeah, I don't think it's 1-to-1. I just think the sort of self-important.
Oh yeah, it's very important. But I think he's more terrifying.
Villain books a lot of people in this book, I'll tell you that.
There's a lot of death. There's a lot of killing.
Villain books are really tough to pull off. And they're not hard to start, but after a while, it's like, well, where do you go? It's so much easier with a hero because the conflict comes to the hero. The hero stumbles across or goes out and seeks the conflict, whereas the bad guy has to instigate everything. Well, what do you do with Prince Namor when he's not instigating anything? When he's just sitting around, I don't know, fishing or whatever he does. You got to make a
I would
story.
make this blue, Mike, but we all know that when Namor is not fighting crime, he is not fishing.
No, I was being a snotty little shit.
He is testing the bounds of the Richards marriage. Is what he's doing.
Yeah, get a life, pal. Get a life. Come on.
I mean,
Harriet. Nobody hits on Harriet. I know you guys are young. You probably don't get this, but
I mean,
Ozzy and Harriet, you don't hit on Harriet.
Namor does.
All I will say is that I was probably the right or absolutely the wrong age to be reading Fantastic Four 1, 2, 3, 4, where Jay Lee drew one of the horniest images I'd ever seen in a comic, and it's not even that dirty, but it's just Namor showing up like wet at Sue Storm's door, and her line is just Namor, "Oh God, I'm married."
Yeah, I remember that actually.
A perfect page. So good to this day.
That's awesome. I'm very excited about what you're doing. I'm excited about what Mad Cave is doing with the property and the properties they're doing. We've talked about it on the show a bunch. I had a good conversation with Chaz Pangburn, who does a lot of the editing on the licensing stuff this weekend. And they're still very excited about the things they're doing. So that's great. Okay, everybody take a breath, because we are going like 100 miles an hour, and it's fantastic. 22 issues of Scarlet Witch so far.
Mm-hmm.
It's some of the best stuff you've done, but also some of the most polarizing is good. That's the right word. I don't. It's not even like there are people who don't like it, and those people are loud.
Isn't that the definition of polarizing?
Yeah, I guess so. There are plenty of people. I think that Polar seems to think that there's two equal opposites. I don't think that's the case. I think there's just the people who are at one end are very loud, and the other part. But let's not talk about that part. Let's talk about the experience you've had with this and what you've been able to do with this character, because I think it's been fantastic.
Thank you.
And I know you have you've enjoyed it, and I know that you've tried to push her or to explore the character in ways that she deserves. So what has that been like for you? Am I wrong there? Or
yeah, I think you're right. I mean, it has been. I mean, you kind of can't talk about it without talking about it. So I will say that it's an extremely complicated character for me to work on now, and part of that is the issues you alluded to. But that being said, Marvel has been really supportive of us taking her in new directions, like building a lot of new stuff in the book. And that is the type of stuff I love to do. And that includes that we're sort of doing an anti-decompression where you get, I mean, back in the day, it was very normal to get a different story in every issue and a full story in every issue. Now that is not the case. So the fact that was sort of something they wanted out of the book is exciting to me. We've gotten to explore so many new characters, so many new places, take Wanda places she'd never been before with characters. I was shocked that we're doing one of the few Daredevil Wanda crossovers. Like I was writing them like they knew each other. And then whoever, the Mike Carlin of Marvel, who knows how many times everybody has talked to everybody, said, oh no, like this actually hasn't happened that much, So no, it has been. I'm extremely proud of the book. There's a lot that is important to me that we talk about in the book. It has, I'm not going to sit here and say that the day that the specific issue comes out isn't usually a challenge, because I still have to be on the internet that day. But I will say, in relation to all that, I saw it when I was in Nashville I don't know, in the spring, in June, I was, an issue of Scarlet Witch had come out, and someone, of course, had ran their mouth, and it just like I'd already had like a bad lasagna in Tennessee. I should not have ordered Tennessee lasagna, and like I went to the hotel and I called my aunt, like I had to apologize to her, but 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 and then of course, like I had the bad lasagna, and I get online and someone, oh, Steve Orlando, go fuck yourself, whatever. The point is yeah, I was like a little salty about it. Like we those things still hurt. But the next day, fate intervened, and I went to the show in Nashville, and a writer who had been prominent in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s was talking to me about how, without solicitation, how he had taken over Thor from Walt Simonson and wrote it for many, 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 many issues. And a fan came to his table at a con one day, had him sign every issue of Thor he'd ever written, however many tens or hundreds. And after that, told him that he was a complete hack, one of the biggest hacks in the history of the business, and he never should have been allowed to write Thor. And it was like the heavens opened up, and then wrote on the wall, "Don't be an idiot. Think about this." And it did put a lot of things in perspective, which has made it, to bring it around, much easier to work on the Scarlet Witch.
The Scarlet Witch is a character that has never been used in a prominent, or has rarely been used in a prominent form in the comic books. I think that there's more meat on the character in the movies and the TV show. Maybe that's just me being picky, because those X-Men books, those early X-Men books were pretty lame, and Scarlet Witch and her brother were very lame until this whole Magneto thing came around. You've done something good with the characters, and a few other writers before you have with the character. But is this an ongoing task for you? I mean, Bob mentioned you've done 22 issues. I'm not up to speed on it, so I don't know.
Well, I mean, it is a modern ongoing, which is to say we've had 3 number ones.
Right, of course.
But yeah, I guess not. There have been 3 number ones, but it's like only a month later. There's just new number.
But I will say that at least with everything that's approved so far, I've written Wanda longer than anyone.
I think that's fair.
It goes. They ran the numbers. The same numbers guy. He told me, but that it was kind of a surprise to hear, and I'm proud of that, because it is a challenging character for the reasons you say, Mike. Because sometimes, like, the things that bring people to the book are not things that are actually canon in the comics, like in a very basic level. And just because of where she's at, post the double O's and the 2010s, without getting into the internet game, like, she is a powerful character, so it's extremely hard. It is like writing the Spectre for me, even though it doesn't look like the Spectre on the surface of that book. Like, that's kind of the most.
Yeah, that would be a sales disaster.
Oh yeah, I mean, these days especially. Although, I mean, listen, if I have one pet campaign, again, to make it about John and Tom, the fact that we only have 2 Spectre collections that only cover like the first 8 or 10 issues is criminal. And I need that book to be collected.
There is no rhyme or reason to how some of these projects, these reprint projects, come about. What confuses me the most is that when they put the whole thing together, they solicit it, they don't get the numbers that they wanted on the solicitation, so they shit can it. You've already done all the work. How bad were the orders so that you can't just print? If it's 500 copies, you can't print 500 copies. It's a trade. Why did you
decide?
I'm ranting now, aren't I?
No, it's great. It's a good question, and it's a question we see. I mean, and Steve's here for this conversation, but like, you go to the point of you're soliciting something, so you have to have thought about that. Like, in my mind, right, you would have thought about like what your expectations are, and you're doing a bad job if your expectations don't meet what the initial sales orders are. Like we did this. They did this with. They did it with Nancy Collins's Swamp Thing. And they finally came back. They did it with 5 years later, which they finally ended up printing eventually. And so yeah, I mean, it's how do you do that? How do you say, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do all this work, and then say no, we're not doing it?
I'll take it one step further because I'm angry now. Damn it! one step further. You're soliciting it to the retailers. Ergo, the fans know it, the readers know it, but certainly the retailers know it, and they go over their little monthly thing, betting the rent every month on their orders. And they go, okay, that's an interesting project. I think I can sell 2 of those. I'll order 2. Well, he was counting on the profit from those 2. And if you do it often enough, then some retailers are going to think, will this book actually come out? I can't believe they're doing this project. What a wonderful project. There's got to be 8 people on earth who will be interested in this. It's like doing an omnibus of all of It's Game Time issues from DC. It's like, who would want this? Well, you got orders from some people. Learn from that and don't disappoint them.
I mean, Bob already knows I'm going to agree. I mean,
when they canceled the 5 years later, I just went and went and found all the issues and read them. I just thought I'm just going to make my own.
I'll show you what I do. I have to get up for a minute. I'll be right back.
Well, now we can talk about him behind his back. Oh,
so when they won't collect something that I want, I just force a library binder to make my own.
So that's the Kirby stuff?
This is the Kirby 2001. Yes. So in this case, it's not that they won't collect it. It's that for a variety of reasons, they probably legally cannot. So I made my own. This actually just came for my birthday last month. So it's still in.
That's cool.
Still in the show area.
Wait, what is in that? How did you do that?
Oh, really? No, I mean, it is actually exactly what it sounds like. I bought all the single issues.
And then you had it.
I bought it to a bookbinder. I mean, this is just a normal library binder.
That is cool.
But yeah, they can do it. They cut, they trim whatever off, and they can do the whole thing. I actually have. So I have that. I've only done it 3 other times. I have the James Robinson, predominantly Cully Hamner firearm book from Malibu / Ultraverse, which I loved as a kid. I had Flex Mentallo and all of his appearances, because for a long time that was rumored that they were never going to figure it out, and I wanted one. So I have all the Doom Patrol issues that I put together with the Flex Mentallo. And then I have the Straczewski and Mike Parobeck, both of his Justice Society runs collected.
No kidding.
I love that book. And Parobeck specifically, I mean, Gone Too Soon, I think, was an enormous talent.
Absolutely. That was one of my favorite projects, doing that first miniseries.
Were you on that part? Did you edit that book?
Yeah. Brian Augustin and I co-edited. We were doing the Impact line, and we had all these great writers and artists sitting around waiting for all the legal people to do their work. So,
which then got canceled.
I'm sorry?
Which then got canceled.
Well, that was a couple years later. That for a standalone imprint with superheroes, that lasted a long, long time compared to other DC projects. But, I didn't want to have all these people starving to death, because I figured sooner or later they'd figure out that, I can get fed if I can get work from somebody else. So we put together this Justice Society miniseries. I proposed it as a weekly. And they said, no, it's Justice Society. We don't sell Justice Society very well. It's fine to do a series, but let's do it monthly. It's not going to sell weekly. And of course, the numbers went through the roof. And the publisher, Mr. Levitz, walked all the way down the corridor, the length of DC Comics as it existed at that point in time, because the office that Denny O'Neil and I had were at the exact opposite end of the building. He walked all the way down there and he says, I was wrong. We should have done this weekly. And he walks all the way back. The only other time he ever did that is when I took Jim Shooter out for lunch and wrote it up as a new talent expense.
I thought you also did that with Wade.
Well, that was different, and that was World War III. I was getting ready to be fired for that one. They fired Mark Wade as an editor for a childish and sophomore stunt that I thought was hilarious. Other people thought was in bad taste, but I'm just a reader here. They fired him for it, and immediately that very day, I took a bunch of our friends, and him out to pastrami and things, which was in the basement of the building DC was in at the time, and wrote Mark up as new talent. Yeah.
Because he's no longer an editor. All right, it's fair.
Yeah. He was freelance.
That's awesome. I love that stuff. Like I said, I did this,
I don't get along well in bureaucracies.
As I said.
Right.
So all right, so let's do question of the day, because we have you on. I want to do question of the day, and I this is tailored to you, and you may have already given the answer, but I want you to take a second.
Oh
and
boy!
Question of the day is:
do we have any theme music?
We're gonna get that. I'm working on it.
Okay.
What is your favorite?
From Jeopardy.
What is your favorite John Ostrander series?
I mean, I did already give the answer. It is the Spectre. My favorite John Ostrander issue is Martian Manhunter number 11, the Brian Hitch guest spot, but my favorite series is the Spectre. Although, you know what, as I run my mouth more, it would be hard not to say Blaze of Glory as well.
It's very good, yeah.
I don't know if I can pick between those two, so maybe you can give me half credit.
All right.
Or double. I mean, it really,
Yeah, that's fine. That's fair. That's good enough. You can listen. We're talking about it. What about you, Mike?
My answer to that question would be Wasteland. In case you thought I was going for Grimjack, that's a very close number 2. But Wasteland, I still can't believe we got away with it.
I can't believe you got away with it. And that's something that if anybody ever wants, you're gonna have to go find them, because they're never gonna collect it.
No, we use some language that you can't use anymore.
And it's difficult to get because some of them are like super special, weird, because of the wrong cover.
Yes, the numbering issue when I'm moving from Fairfield, Connecticut to where I live now in Norwalk, and in the middle of the move, I get a call from Bob Greenberger, who was my assistant editor at the time, saying, well, they screwed up. They printed the wrong cover. What do we do? And, I'm moving everything I own into this new house that I own. And my mind really wasn't on that. So when I stopped and I thought about it, and I said, okay, here's what we do. Print a blank cover. Just have the logo and the art, the credits along the side, but a blank cover. Today, of course, that's now a variant cover, and they're making a fortune off of it. I inadvertently invented that blank cover because the printer screwed up on Wasteland, and I had them when we reprinted the issue. I think it was number 8. We said, we printed the real number 8. It's 6. We said the real number 6 on the cover.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I've led a strange life.
It's very difficult for me to pick because there's so many different things that I like. There's so many. I'm gonna go with Grimjack though, and the thing about Grimjack, and it Suicide Squad is also up there with me. The Spectre is amazing, you know. But the thing about Grimjack is that I think it's the most. Wasteland is very political, but it's also very humorous, and I think that the political and pointing the finger at the world we live in Grimjack is much more, I don't know, to me, sincere and pointed. So that's why I think Grimjack. Like, I'm not saying that there it's very direct in the satire in Wasteland, but it's also funny.
Yeah, I mean, it was sort of a tribute to what Paul Krasner did with The Realist back in the 50s and 60s and 70s. And by the way, I wrote for The Realist in the very last issue. Paul Krasner went back to the earliest days of EC. He was one of Mad's first writers who wasn't already on staff. And he did political humor like nobody else could. He was brilliant.
So, all right. So, question of the day is done. We are enjoying this. What do you want to do that you can talk about in this medium or any other medium? What's out there? I mean, you still have what, like another few years to get to 40?
No. But
you got one.
Yeah, that's a few in the way that I'm in my late early 30s. But yes. Anyway, my early mid my yeah, no, anyway. I mean, the things that I really want to do, like, are magic wand things, like but that's not what you really are asking me, you know. Like, I wish.
I want to know. Magic, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, the answer is, you know, make more genres viable in the American market. Because, like, you ask, what do I want to do? I want to write things that are not currently commercially viable, which is a luxury I don't have. Make more people read romance books, make more people read sports books, take your pick, anything that is not essentially capes, crime, or horror. But the real answer behind that is change American reading culture so that we can again become a consumable, like we were in the eras preceding the direct market, so that we can grow the reader base and these other things become viable. So those are very, like, boring business answers. But I mean, the way that I learned to love comics isn't really possible anymore, because I got my first book off of a spinner rack at a grocery store.
Right.
We all did.
So, you know, like, so to get to the thing I said, which is, like, you know, which is the real thing, I want to do those types of books. So what do I want to do? I want to do things in those genres. So then it becomes, how would that be possible? Make them viable? How could we get there? You know, that's what we really need. There are nerd answers too. Like, I would love to write The Phantom and the Shadow, the Shadow solo, even though I did write him before.
You've written The Shadow.
Oh yes, no, and it's one of my favorite things, but I've never written the solo.
The Phantom is such an interesting character because everybody has written the Phantom because they knock out this weekly book. They used to, at least in Australia. And one day, I read the Phantom, and one day, totally unbeknownst to me, I get my little monthly packet of Phantom comics, and there's a story by Dick Giordano, my boss, you know, although my previous boss. I didn't know Dick did a Phantom story. I wasn't the least bit surprised, but I was thrilled to see it.
I mean, I want to. I would even write, like, Phantom 2040 from the cartoon from the 90s. I'm easygoing with the Phantom.
That's not a bad cartoon.
No, I was actually surprised at a lot of its views on things. I was really, as a kid, I didn't like it because it wasn't the real Phantom. You know, he wasn't.
Right.
But now as an adult, I went back and watched someone I've been working, and I have been surprised at the writing and the voice acting and things. Yeah, those are, I mean, there's always answers like that. You know, and if you want to go deeply into my non-commercial wants, I've always wanted to write a Bildungsroman of Boris Godunov. Like, I pitched it as a crime book at Vertigo years ago. That did not get over. But yeah, so I have my biography of Goodenough, which again, God love me. I doubt that's going to get over the plate. I've also I actually have a passion play that I'm self-funding. If you really want to see what I want to do, I'm doing a Passion of Sergius and Bacchus book. But that hits the note of do differing formats. That's the hypothetically, it's going to be a new format that's based off of kind of the storytelling in The Passion of Joan of Arc, the silent film. So, but if you see how esoteric this is getting, this is why my first answer is make my ideas commercially viable.
Yeah, no, I mean, I get that. That's and that is, it's not a surprising answer to me.
It's actually very interesting.
You have, and I this is a little weird in that, we're friends outside of the fact that I'm interviewing you on the show and that you're here. But I think that it's important to understand, your place where in the industry, and I don't think you understand it. I said, oh, I have Steve coming on the show this week, and I talked to people about what we're doing, and I asked that, and to a man or a woman or whatever, to a person, they're like, I love Steve Orlando. I think he's great. He's great. I mean, there are people who are like, have you ever been out with Steve Orlando? I'm like, yes. We don't have to discuss that. But
that, in the modern age, you should probably lend a little bit of context.
Okay, but that means you're fun. You're fun to be out with. That's what we meant. That's what we meant.
I'm like,
swell fellow.
Yeah, no. And that there's that. But you're a very gifted writer. You've been doing this for a decade. That in memoriam that you saw is like maybe 50% of the titles that you've worked on. I'm glad you're doing this, and it's third time back, and there definitely will be a fourth and a fifth and whatever, because you're fun to have on the show, and we always have new things to talk about, and it's always exciting. But I want you to leave here with the concept that you're welcome here because you're a damn good writer, and I'm giving Mike that opportunity to blow smoke up your ass too. So,
well,
I don't think we've had any bad writers on the show.
Well, that's true.
Well, have you had? No, I can't say that.
Yeah, right. And I'm just not unpleasant enough to rank the writers that we've had on the show, but I'm very happy to have finally gotten the chance to share this with you, because my only encounter with you really was that brief second at the Suicide Squad premiere. Although that was fun. I have to admit, poor John was just bumping in the wall. He was so amazed. John's one of my oldest friends. I'm sorry?
It has to be amazing, to see, well, especially someone of the caliber of the person embodying Amanda Waller there. But yeah, it had to be amazing. And never mind the whole team and everything like that.
Well, Amanda Waller is one of the great character creations of the 1980s.
Or of the industry, man. I think that she's an amazing character.
Absolutely. And to have been involved in our Legends miniseries, which we did in Chicago before I moved back out here. So that was fun. That was great work.
We haven't talked about that on the show, and Steve's here. So when you worked on Legends, right? Kind of it was Len scripting and John plotting. How did that work?
John plotted, Len scripted. Yes.
But what's that?
Len Wein knows.
Yes.
Adding the last.
I'm sorry. Yeah. Len Wein was scripting. John plotted. John Byrne did the art, did the pencils. Mm-hmm. Carl Kiesel inked, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And the creation of Amanda Waller in the Legends series, like, was it, how did that go about, and how was that presented?
There's some parts to it I can't say because it violates a confidence with people unrelated to this. Now, I know I just made it sound 50 times more mysterious, and it is. So there. we were plotting the thing. I was living in Evanston, which is a city just north of Chicago, the Twin Cities, Evanston and Chicago. And that's near where First Comics' offices were. Not a coincidence. And I had already started working for DC in that Giordano wanted me to start working on Legends before I got to New York. He wanted to have the whole thing in the works before I got to New York. The reason for that was very clear, because they couldn't get anything together that would get past the mountain of people who feel like they had a personal investment in it. And for a year, they were stuck. You know, they wanted something totally developed away from the office. So we did that. And of course, me being me, I suggested a bunch of Kirby villains for the story, which is what we used. But, you know, we needed some new stuff, some original stuff. The purpose of Legends was the opposite of Crisis, the first Crisis, first of many. Crisis ended things and killed off people. I wanted to have us create things. We created a new Justice League and new Flash, so on and so on. And we needed a character to give us some gravitas. Not really a villain, because we had all the Kirby characters, and you have Darkseid, who pretty much crowded out all the other villains. So John created Amanda and had this whole Suicide Squad thing going. He and Bobby Greenberger had talked a little bit during all that time about the spin-off series, so we could use Legends as a launch pad for the Suicide Squad, as well as for the other projects I just mentioned. So that was a very effective, very creative, and for DC, an extremely profitable use of that miniseries. We got Amanda Waller out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
if nothing else.
The cover of her, I mean, like, there's been a lot of versions, but the cover of her putting Batman up against the wall from Suicide Squad is like, it's one of the best comic covers that DC has done. And you also know everything you need to know about her from that image, which is why it's a perfect cover.
It is what you think of if you're not 15 years old and you think about the Suicide Squad comic book. That cover is the first thing that appears in your mind's eye. That's a great cover.
No, I got Bob's to work.
He can put it up.
Oh yeah,
it's really, you're right. It's one of the best covers because not only does it tell you everything you need to know about the story, but it makes you want to know why. In other words, it sells the comic, and that's the purpose.
You know? And she filled a special role back then. You know, I mean, she wasn't. I mean, sometimes I feel like she's interpreted as being like an ends justify the means, purely evil character. But I would argue that, like, in her peak characterization, that is not her. You know, she is. I would not say that she's an evil person. She might do evil things, but those are two different things.
I don't think she's evil. She just has a different moral standard, one that most people would find difficult to accept.
Current DC crisis notwithstanding.
Yeah, I just, to be honest, I'm not up on it, but no, I just think, like, I mean, this is not in the Suicide Squad realm. She's also very well. I mean, of course, she's well written in Justice League Unlimited because Dwayne wrote it. But I mean, her turn there is to me like the perfect Waller. You know, she's certainly against the Justice League. until it becomes apparent that, you know, she needs the Justice League to fight something worse, and then that's no problem for her. You know, like it's I would say it's like 60% in the chaotic neutral area, and I've always loved where she exists there. A similar, not, I mean, if you want to take a step further, it's like I remember when Grant and Howard and Arnie Jorgensen were on Justice League, and Rock of Ages, that arc was actually one of the first comic things I ever bought once I was in for good, because I sort of went back and forth for a while. But there's a similar dynamic where, like, if we're talking about the shades of villainy or anti-heroism, at one point the Riddler like has killed all these people, and he reveals to Lex Luthor that he has not just killed them all, of course, but he's rigged all their coffins to shoot their bodies out at their funerals so that he'll ruin all the funerals. And he's, you know, laughing about it, and Lex beats the shit out of him, you know, because that's an area that he won't go, you know, like that sort of reveling in the act versus just committing it is a line too far for him. So
Right.
I've always liked where Amanda lives for that, because yeah, she will do morally questionable things, or at least what could be perceived that way. But actually, as I run my mouth on this, kind of like Doom in the way, like she still sees the bigger picture, you know?
Oh yeah, I mean, Doom's a good thing. He it differently, because I think she's gone a little bit further to the villain side as time has gone on. Not and I'm not saying she belongs all the way there, but whereas Doom started on the villain side and has come back a little bit, where not that he has, it's just the understanding of his motivations has become more clear.
Well, if you want to, I mean, if you want to bring it to the thing you asked me earlier about, you know, a book I'm writing now, the Doom dynamic is what we wanted out of Hexfinder and Wanda. There's a reason her second appearance is her essentially doing what Doom would do. You know, she doesn't want the Earth to be destroyed or things like that. That gets in the way of her own fucked up villain arc. So, you know, she's perfectly willing to work with Wanda when something bigger is going on, and then
right.
He goes back to hating her. I mean, they're based off Reed and Doom, because I think that's one of the most interesting relationships that there is in the business.
In the Broadway play Warp that we adapted, and that was finished in many cities, but not New York. There's a line in Warp where the hero, Lord Cumulus, tells the bad guy, Prince Cumulus and Lord Chaos, blow up the world, where are you going to live? And on stage, that was funny because he played it very naively. And yet, that's a line that comes to mind about once every 2 or 3 months when I'm reading a comic book that wasn't completely well thought out. No. Oh yeah, we're doing that again. We're blowing up the world. Yeah, boy.
I mean, that's the Marvin the Martian motivation. Like, you know, like,
that's right.
I can't blow up the Earth. That's where I keep all my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
exactly.
Still one of my favorite ones. Talking about co-writing, maybe my first co-write was Marvin the Martian Manhunter with Frank Barberi.
Oh, that's awesome.
A book that I was corralled into. Dan called me and said I was going to love knowing that Martian Manhunter is my favorite DC character. He said, you're going to love the first thing I'm going to tell you, and you're going to not love the second thing. And so I said, okay, let's ride, Dan. And he said, okay, Martian Manhunter. I was like, let's do it. I'm in. It doesn't matter what it is. And then he said, great. So the next part, Marvin the Martian. But we got there. I have 2 pages of it on my wall. I'm very proud of that book.
A bunch of those strange crossovers were extremely good. You know, if somebody asked me what was sort of the high point of Dan's career, in my opinion, that would be it.
I mean, I had a blast on it. You know, like we're one drunken night between Matt Reeves and Tom away from Elmer Fudd showing up in the Batman. So, you know, somewhere. Listen, you're gonna see him in the background, and you're gonna have fucking plots, man.
Yes, I am, and I'm looking forward to the moment. I won't go ape shit.
I mean, I will say, never mind. I won't say it. I can't say it. I'll tell you later. But yeah, I agree with you. But anyway, I think we're just about out of time, and I again have had just the best time. We love having you on the show. We look forward to all these things we've been talking about all night about these great things you're doing. I'm so excited for you to be doing them. Excited for the work you're doing on Wanda too, because I've really enjoyed it. And thanks for being here.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure.
Steve, it's really great to finally have this opportunity to have a conversation with you. I've enjoyed every minute of it.
Absolutely, thank you.
All right, we have some. I'm gonna pull you out, Steve, and we're gonna end the show. Thanks for being here.
See you next
time. All right, so we have another guest next Tuesday. We will be here with Chris Campana, which I'm looking forward to. I saw him this weekend. It's going to be a great show. He's been, someone who I've been friends with for a while, but been so excited for the work he's doing at Marvel. We're going to talk about his work there. We're going to talk about his creator-owned stuff, which I'm very excited for. And so we will be back next week. We will, I think I have something else here for us. No.
Looking at your notes.
I'm looking at my notes. Yeah, we're good. We are ready to go. So we will see you next week. Next Tuesday here. We have shows next Tuesday. We have the one following after that. We might have a week off right before New York because it's crazy. And if that happens, we do have a show right after it. So
do we have a show for election night?
We will have a fun show on election.
We
night.
have to.
We may not even have a guest. We'll do two of us, or we'll either have no guests or like 5 guests.
Okay, but we have to plan for that one because that's going.
We're also working on our Halloween show, so stay tuned, everyone, and thanks for being here. And as we say, we will see you later.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us. See you next week.
This has been a production of the Pop Culture Squad Network. PopCultureSquad.com.